Namaste everyone, welcome back to CodeCraft with Poonam. I am your coding mentor Poonam Agrawal. So if you have already watched my part 1 of the series, then you are welcome back. If this is your first video, don't worry, you can start right now. So today we are focusing on the toughest part of our most Java interviews. That is the DSA coding round. Okay, so before that, let me ask you something. So, have you ever looked at a DSC question and thought, I know the concept, but I have no idea how to start it? Or maybe you have solved the problem, but when someone asks, why did you choose this approach? Then you suddenly go blank. So that's exactly where most candidates lose marks. Because interviewers are not only checking whether your code works, they are checking how you think. Can you explain your approach? Can you identify the edge cases? Can you compare a brute force solution with an optimized one? Can you analyze the time and space complexity? So, today's ChatGPT prompt helps you practice exactly like a real coding interview. So instead of simply giving you answers, ChatGPT becomes your DSA interviewer. Okay, so it gives you one problem at a time, waits for your solution, reviews your thinking, suggests improvements, and even asks realistic follow up interview questions. Okay, so by the end of this video, you will have a copy paste prompt that turns ChatGPT into your personal DSA interview coach. Okay, so let's get started. So here is your personal DSA interview coach, that is your ChatGPT. Before we start solving problems, there's one important thing I recommend. Don't jump straight into asking ChatGPT for DSA questions. Instead, spend just 1 minute giving ChatGPT some context. So tell it your experience level, your strong and weak topics, and most importantly, tell it to behave like a real interviewer, not a solution generator. Okay, and that completely changes the quality of practice. So I have already explained the setup prompt in detail in part 1. So I will keep it brief here. Okay, and I will also put it in the description box for you. Just paste it once at the beginning of a new chat and let ChatGPT acknowledge it. And then you are ready to start your coding interview practice. Okay. So here is your coding round setup prompt. Okay. So here for an example, I'm considering this. Okay. That is interview at Amazon. So here this you can change according to your target company. Okay. So here you are a senior Java coding interviewer at Amazon. Okay. And here is 2 years of Java experience and preparing for Java coding interview. Okay, so here you can change this according to your experience level. Okay, and what are your strong topics and what are your weak topics, you can change accordingly. Okay, and here this is the main part of our prompt. Okay, this instruction, that is tailor all coding problems to my experience level, focus more on weak topics. Okay, ask one problem at a time, never reveal the solution until I attempt it. Okay, so here we are giving instruction that after providing the solution, then only it needs to reveal the solution. Okay, and then evaluate your approach and point out the edge cases and compare the brute force optimized solutions. Okay, so these are the instructions I'm giving here. Okay, and then ask realistic follow-up interview questions whenever appropriate. So here the main part of this instruction is I'm providing it is as important. Okay, do not start the coding interview yet and do not ask coding problems. Okay, so here you need to copy and paste this prompt. Okay, so here these things you can change accordingly. Okay, and this is the main important instruction for this prompt. Okay, So by this, what happens is now your ChatGPT understands how you want to prepare. Okay, so now let's start the interview. So now comes the main prompt, and this is the one I personally like the most because it does not just help you solve DSA questions, it teaches you how to think like an interview candidate. I know many people get nervous when they hear the word DSA. They think, I'm not from a computer science background, I'm weak in algorithms. I will never clear coding interviews. But here's the truth, most interviewers don't expect perfection, they expect structured thinking. If you can explain your approach, consider edge cases, and improve your solutions step by step. Okay, so you're already doing what a good interviewer wants to see. So that's exactly what this prompt helps you practice. So it gives you one problem at a time, waits for your solution, reviews your approach, shows both the brute force and optimized solutions, and also explains time and space complexity, and even teaches you how to communicate your thought process during the interview. So let's paste the prompt and see it in action. So now you see what ChatGPT generated. So here it acknowledged us. Why? Because here I have instructed. Okay, that's why it acknowledged. That understood, and ChatGPT will follow exactly these instructions. Okay, whatever here we have provided. Okay, so now comes the prompt. Okay, so here it is. So now here I am giving this prompt, that is DSA problem. Okay, so now here this is our prompt. Okay, so here I have instructed ChatGPT that that the difficulty level should be easy to medium. Okay, and here I have given this topics. Okay, so that is here for array, strings, or recursion. Okay, so here this is for each problem I have instructed that I want this way, that give the problem title, clearly explain. Okay, provide one sample input and expected output, and before asking me to write code, ask me to explain all these instructions. Okay, and then asking ChatGPT to wait. Okay, and then we are instructing that you should not reveal the solution until I answer it. Okay, and then after submitting our answer, it will provide the question, okay, based on this instruction. And then you need to submit your answer. After that only, it will evaluate your solution. Okay, so here it is. Here is the instructions for after submitting your solution. Okay, so now what happens when you give this prompt? So here you see, this is what ChatGPT generated. Okay, so here is your problem title. So here the question is find the second largest distinct element in an array. So this is of type level. This is easy. Okay, topic arrays. So here is the problem statement and here is the example, that is your sample input and output, expected output. Okay, here it is. So here you see what is your understanding of the problem. Okay, all these instructions. You can see this. Okay, so here you notice that it didn't immediately give me the solution. Instead, it started by giving me a realistic interview problem. So in this case, the question is find the second largest distinct element in an array. So that is actually a very common interview question for freshers and developers with up to 2 or 3 years of experience. Okay. So now, before revealing any code, ChatGPT asked me to explain your understanding of the problem. So now, before revealing any code, ChatGPT asked me to explain your understanding of the problem. That's exactly how a real coding interview works. So it even reminds me to explain my approach, think about edge cases, and discuss the expected time and space complexity while solving the problem. Okay, so these are the things interviewers are looking for, but many candidates forget to mention. So now let me quickly attempt this solution. So I have already prepared my interview response to save time. So in a real interview, of course, I would think though each of these points myself. So let me show you my answer so we can focus on how ChatGPT will review it. Okay, so here it is. So here my understanding of the problem, okay, I have given here clarifying the questions, all these things. And then here is what is my initial brute force approach, okay, and then what is the optimized approach, okay, what I'm thinking about it, and then expected time and space complexity, all this solution is given mine. So here all this answer is provided by me, okay, and here we have all these edge cases, okay, and this is the Java solution which I have provided. Here you can see this is the public class second largest public static int find second largest int array, okay, and then here java.util.arrays.sort array. So here int largest is equal to array of array.length minus 1 per, this is the for loop, okay, and then here I'm returning minus 1, okay, and then this is our main method, okay. So you might be thinking why I pasted this. Why? Because to keep this video concise, I am using a prepared answer. So in a real interview, you would answer these questions yourself before writing the code. Okay, so I am intentionally not trying to make it perfect. Okay, the solution is not perfect, which I have provided. Okay, so this is intentionally I have provided it. Because after I submit my answer, ChatGPT will review my approach, point out my mistakes or missed edge cases, compare the brute force and optimized solutions, and also it will explain the time and space complexity. Okay, and even tell me how I should communicate my thought process during the interview. Okay, so it also asks a follow up interview question, making the practice feel much closer to a real coding interview. So, this is what makes this prompt so useful. So, here you are not just practicing DSA problems, you are learning how to think, how to code, and how to communicate like a Java developer in an actual interview. Okay, so now let's see how ChatGPT evaluates my answer. Okay, so when I enter this, here it is. So here you see interview evaluation. Here it provided overall rating. Okay, and here it reviewed my thought process. So that is before the code. Okay, so here you see. So here the first thing I like is that it does not simply tell me whether my code is correct or wrong. Instead, it reviews my entire interview performance. In this case, it gave me an 8.8 out of 10. And notice something interesting. It didn't start by reviewing my Java code. It first reviewed my thought process. That's exactly what happens in many product based company interviews. The interviewer wants to understand how you think, not just whether your code compiles. Okay, so here you see this is the rating and here is review of thought process. Okay. So here you see that understanding the problem, clarifying the questions. Okay. So what are the things I have asked about? Okay. All that things and this one. Okay. And this is the brute force approach. Okay. So what all things I have described and this is the optimized approach. Okay. So it rated each one of this. You can see here. Okay. And the complexity. Okay. So here you notice one thing. So here you see that ChatGPT appreciated that I first understood the problem, asked clarifying questions, identified a simple solution, and then discussed an optimized approach, right? But it also suggested improvements. For example, it recommended asking one additional interview question. That is, am I allowed to modify the interview array? So that's actually an important question because my brute force solution sorts the array, which changes the original input. So this is exactly the kind of detail many candidates forget during interviews. So here you see, this is the one which I was talking about. Am I allowed to modify the input or should I preserve it? And then see here, it provided this one for the brute force approach. Good explanation. You clearly describe all these things. Okay. So here it reviewed my brute force solution. It agreed that sorting the array and then scanning backwards works correctly. So here is the optimized approach, okay, and this is the complexity and this is the edge case. Okay, so see here, review of your code, okay, the review of what the solution I have provided, okay. So here you see it provided works correctly, this line, and for this line there is a potential issue, okay. And for this, if the array is empty for this line, it throws this array index out of bound exception, okay. So here you see that you should guard against empty or null arrays first. Okay, and then here for this line, it said that it's good. And also it said that scanning backward is the correct idea. Okay, and then for this line, it said that it's correct and this properly skips duplicates. And for this line, it tells that it's correct if all elements are equal. So here you notice that so here, ChatGPT reviewed my actual Java code, okay, and my solution was correct. But it noticed something I completely missed. That is, I never checked whether the array was null or contained fewer than two elements. So without that validation, my program could throw an exception. So that's exactly the type of bug interviewers look for. A working solution is good. A robust solution is even better. Okay, so this is okay. So here you see, this is the missing validation. Got it? And then was your explanation interview ready? Okay, all these things. And then here you see brute force Java solution and optimized Java solution. So here ChatGPT showed me both the implementations. That is the first one, brute force solution using sorting, and this optimized one using a single traversal. So I really like this comparison because instead of just saying one solution is better, it explains why it's better. So that's how you actually learn. Okay, so here it is. And here is the note, okay, and then here is the comparison table, okay, for this brute force and optimized one, and here is the common mistakes candidates make. So these are exactly the mistakes that cost candidates marks during coding interviews. And then here you see it provided how to communicate your thought process during the interview. Okay, here you see all these things. A clear flow would sound like this: restate the problem, clarifying assumptions, describe a simple solution, identifying optimization, discuss edge cases, code confidently. Okay. And then here you see this is the follow-up interview question. This is the next question. Okay. And this is probably my favorite part. ChatGPT didn't just stop evaluating my answer. It also asked me another interview question. So that's how exactly an interviewer increases your difficulty level. Okay, so instead of practicing isolated questions, you are practicing an actual interview conversation. And that's what makes this prompt so powerful. Okay, and that's it. Now you have a ChatGPT prompt that helps you practice DSA interview the right way. Not by memorizing solutions, but by thinking like an interviewer. Remember, in a real coding interview, writing correct code is only part of the evaluation. Your thought process, your communication, and your ability to improve your solution are just as important. That's exactly what these prompts help you practice. So I have added this complete prompt in the description box, okay? So you can copy it and start practicing today. And I have a small challenge for you. Open ChatGPT, paste this prompt, solve one DSA problem today, and let me know in the comments. What rating did ChatGPT give you? Was it 7 out of 10, 8, or did you manage to score 10 out of 10? I genuinely love to see your results and I will be reading your comments. If this video helped you, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you are preparing for Java interviews, subscribe to CodeCraft with Poonam. Every week I share beginner-friendly tutorials on Core Java, Spring Boot, Hibernate, interview preparation, and practical AI tools that can make your learning faster. So in the next video of this series, we will use ChatGPT to master Java 8 coding interview with streams, lambdas, optionals, and real interview questions. So make sure you are subscribed, and I will see you in the next one. So all the best for your interview. Till then, keep learning, keep growing. This is Poonam Agrawal from CodeCraft with Poonam signing off.